And Susan Hollins has done the February and March minutes, and she's tried desperately to get me to look at them and see if they're okay. And I have not had time. I apologize. So we'll do that at the next one. I hope she'll forgive me because I just didn't have
Well,
time.
they were done very recently, so.
Well, I did have a question about them because my memory of those minutes is there's a huge discussion in there about our mission. And
Yeah.
we put out to everybody for comments. And I noticed that the continuation of that topic doesn't show up on our agenda. And anything because we don't have the minutes, or
maybe we could. I tried to capture everything from the notes, which included that the mayor would assign the mayor's support of the committee and that someone from her office, I don't know, maybe
Caitlin, who is
that's me.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, there's quite a bit about that in the minutes, the discussion and how it ended up.
I'll make a motion that we table the approval of the minutes to next meeting, and then maybe by then we'll have time to review them and then maybe bolster up our agenda for next meeting.
Well, next meeting, Chief Hvac is going to come and talk about the improvements to the police station. So it will be a big meeting next time.
is there any urgency for us to do the, I thought there was an urgency for us to do our mission stuff because of the
Charter change?
charter, yeah. What's the timing on that?
What happened was the mayor, I sent you what she had written on the change to the charter for planning and construction. Do you remember that?
I remember that we all thought that the Charter Commission wanted this committee to go away, and that what she wrote did not support that. And
Right.
so
And so then I took what everybody had said and wrote something and sent it to David Singer and the mayor. And David Singer said the mayor has the final say and she's not interested in what I had to say. So I gave up. So we're doing what the mayor said, and let me see if I've got.
What did she say? Can you remind us?
I'm going to try to post what I wrote in the minutes in chat in case. It's a pretty, unless you don't want me to do that, Jean.
I think that's a no-no. I got scolded for something like that in one at the fire station meeting who was late, and I guess we're not allowed to do that.
Okay.
That's a violation.
So I'll second Joe's motion to move approval of minutes to the next meeting.
Okay. Shall we just everybody raise your hand if you agree?
Aye.
Any no's?
Non-voter.
Okay, so we got that one taken care of. And I wanted to, and we'll talk about the council has to approve the charter change. So we'll talk about it at the next meeting since I don't have it on the agenda for today. And the council is working on the budget right now. So I don't think that they'll be working on the charter until they finish the budget. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Does.
And
and there's no public comment, right?
What? I didn't hear you.
I just said there's no public comment. It's on our agenda.
Right. But there's no public. So
yeah, but I'll make a motion to open public comment.
We don't
so that
need
it's
to.
Open.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to close it.
We don't need to, Joe. There's no public here.
I know in other groups I'm on, we do open public comment. We give public time to join if they want to throughout. And then there's a time that we do close the public comment. And it just seems to be a nice way to open that opportunity. And then if it doesn't, as a board, we've done
Can the public access?
Providing that, I think, for the community. So,
Okay.
Yes, this is a posted meeting and all you have to do to come to it is click on the link.
Okay, because I know we get them emailed to us. I didn't know if the public had the same link in our calendar. They probably do. Okay.
Carol, did you have something you wanted to say?
There was just something I'm wondering in general. When these meetings get recorded, are they then posted so anyone can watch them at any time? So it's
No.
more just for the city's records?
Right.
yes.
People can get them if they put in a FOIA request. We have all the recordings.
Okay. Because I'm always so careful about, like, it's recorded. I have to say things perfectly.
I know,
I'm like,
I'm thinking about that too.
I don't think anybody's going to sit and listen to this meeting. I may be wrong.
you never, ever know.
You are right.
It'll be that one time you said something and that's not really what you meant, but that's what they hear.
I know, and the school committee is going through a lot right now on the
open public
meetings.
comment. Let's open it up and then let's continue our meeting. And there maybe is a time that we can close public comment.
Okay, Joe, thank you very much. So if public comes, we'll let them comment. I wanted to bring you up to date on what's happening on the library. They finished the 100% drawings and they will be submitted to the planning board tomorrow. And then in a couple of weeks, the library will go out to bid and we'll find out if it's going to be done on budget or under or whatever we're trying to do. But the library is definitely headed onward. Thank goodness. I see Joe's lips moving, but he's got it on mute. So, any questions about the library?
The demolition, that's still something the library is going to help with the fire department.
Right.
That's already been decided.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
part of what will go out to bid is the demolition of the fire station.
I was wondering if that would include the cupola removal for the historical. It will.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That'll be a great relief from the fire department. They got enough to do.
Right. And they are busy now packing everything and storing it. And I think there are trailers on the parking lot. Caitlin, have you noticed trailers?
Yeah, they're there. I saw two of them there. They're little in the back.
Yeah, so it's all progressing. Susan, you had something?
Yes, is the temporary location of the fire department all settled?
Yes, it's going to be on the parking lot across from Hope and Olive and behind the courthouse. They have contracted for the covers for the fire station. There'll be two big hoop things to cover the fire trucks. And then there'll be two trailers, one for offices and one for the firemen to sleep in. And those have all been contracted. So, and the city is doing the electric and sewer and water and all of that stuff. They just found out that they have to put in cast iron pipes for the sewer, which is going to be a huge big deal. And is going to cost more than we had hoped. The state will, yeah, Carol.
I'm sorry. I remember Marlo talking about that at the meeting. And do you remember who made that decision? Like why it has to be?
The state will not allow them.
The state's like plumbing? committee or? Okay.
I don't
I'll
remember.
check in with you.
Yeah, I don't remember who he said, but they submitted a request for an exception to cast iron pipe, and it was turned down, so they have to do cast iron pipe.
So you can put an outhouse on the fire department parking lot, but you can't use PVC for temporary plumbing. That's insane.
Of course. The project manager said Massachusetts is the only state in the union that insists on cast iron pipe for the plumbing, so too bad. That's gonna be a costly thing to do. And then I guess it'll all just sit there till it rusts away or whatever happens to pipe after the temporaries close down. And they're still working on purchasing the land where the open air market is. But the committee has started a discussion of the heating system that will be used. So progress is being made on the permanent fire station. Right, Carol?
Sure, we'll call it that.
And Carol, why don't you talk to them about, you want to talk about the fire station some more?
Well, no, I have a question. Since Joe is gracing us here, it's so good to see you. Is there a purchase and sale signed?
Yeah,
To ask?
yes, there is a.
There is a signed purchase and sale.
Great.
The property is being
We have phase
tested
2 going
for
on.
environmental hazards at this point.
Right. Or the
So
level of the contamination. Right. We already know there's some.
correct.
And
Okay.
the temporary fire station will all be put together by September, I think, August, September.
I think they said August.
And then the library work can really start because they want to go ahead and demolish the fire station so they can use that for parking and, for putting all their stuff.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Sure.
So since you mentioned HVAC, heating system for the fire station, of course, that begs the question of what is the goal and are we aiming for another zero net energy building or not? And Carol, can you tell us anything about that?
Yes, I can. So our energy target is to achieve an EUI, an energy use intensity of 25, which is a net zero energy or net zero ready, depending on whether or not we are able to do the renewables for the I don't know. There's a lot of background noise, so I don't know if you can hear me, but so as far as HVAC, we had another, just like with the library, kind of like 1,000-mile-an-hour presentation by a very knowledgeable mechanical engineer who speaks a language that very few people do. So the great news is there were 4 scenarios that they presented, and one of them was an all-electric system, which is really what I would hope to see. And they just finished up a fire department in Lexington, Mass. That is a net zero energy ready fire station. They both, the architect and the mechanical engineer, said it was the first one that they had worked on. But the fact that they've done it now, so we won't be the first, and that it's been operational for 8 months and they have been working without problem is also another really good news. So we're going to be working with, anyway, a few of the other proposals do have gas backup, and because there's no natural gas on the site, that would mean propane. So, and of course, there's some people that are partial to that type of system. And so the mechanical engineer is supposed to do some more number crunching and come back to our next meeting with more details, including like energy costs and exactly how much each will save. But again, what really it was I thought great news was that the all electric, which is a VRF system, just like what we're going to do in the library and similar to what's in City Hall and John Zahn Center, that that's actually the least costly system to put in. So I'm like, wow, we're finally at a point where net zero is actually the cheapest option to go in. So I figured no problem. And then, then there's propane. So yeah, we'll see what that results in.
And the fire chief said they have to have propane to cook with. They just absolutely can't
I'll be
cook.
okay with that. That's what Lexington did too. I cook with gas too, and there is no induction supposed to be fabulous, but I'm okay with a gas stove
Is it-
versus,
Is it fair to say that if the system is, I'm sorry if I have a delay, if the system's set up for propane and then the moratorium for natural gas does end, I imagine a separate burner could be put in there so that we could use the natural gas, which I'm assuming is more efficient because you don't have to have the truck drive there to fill it and stuff. I don't know if I have a question there other than,
I'm sorry.
okay. No, you're good. That's,
Yeah, they have conversion
John.
kits for that kind of work.
Mhm.
Yeah, but more importantly, they'd need to be able to connect to the gas line, which I'm sure is no problem at that point in the line on Main Street. So we did meet with Berkshire Gas initially when we were first looking at the site to see if, again, just to cover all bases, but they were unwilling to make any accommodations for us. So well, I was going to add one more thing. I think you asked, Joe, but yeah, there wouldn't be a full gas system. It would just be like a central heat pump, and then there would be a gas backup for.
I have a wild, crazy idea, but no need to get into it.
You have a what?
I said I have a wild and crazy idea. Like, I wonder how many BTUs that you would need for that fire station for natural gas, and then I wonder if we could calculate how many homes might be saving those BTUs by converting an inefficient system to a more efficient system, and then somehow pitching to Berkshire Gas the trade in BTUs. But I don't want to take up time in this meeting minute on that, and I'm sure you've already been up and down that flagpole. But go ahead, Carol.
Well, I'll just say we already did. I'm the queen of wild and crazy ideas, I think. So the whole meeting we had with Berkshire Gas was to pitch that I could quantify what the city's already saved in gas from all the measures we've already taken. And if we could have that as an allotment, since overall we've reduced our gas usage by X%, which is very substantial. But I will say, this is what I deal with every day. We really have to put our practices where our mouths are. We really need to focus on, the climate, and electrifying all of our buildings is how we're going to get there. So even saying, oh, we'll save a few pennies if we do this, and propane is not any savings. It's going to cost more. It's going to cost more to put in that system. So I really was surprised that anyone really even wanted to entertain it. So, if we keep saying, oh, but what about in just this one case, or what about just this one time, it does add up. So sorry, I'm off.
No, good. How many BTUs do you think would a building like the fire station use? I figured you would have that number like that.
I can tell you how many kilowatt hours I think it's going to use, but I don't know BTUs.
Nancy?
Yeah, I just want to say
Go ahead, Nancy.
how excited I am that we seem to have a company who has experience in doing electric heating and cooling. And I would say that also that, and just support everything that Carol said about that, the national and worldwide mission, if you will, is to get off of fossil fuels, period, the end, and do everything with electric, and then provide the, create the electricity without the fossil fuels. So we really need to move in that direction. I'm surprised about the request for cooking with gas. There's a lot of statistics that show that the air quality bad air quality issues that come out of cooking with gas are really substantial in terms of affecting people's lungs and respiratory illness. And I would not support, trying to put in a non-electric heating system, cooking system. All electric. We can do it.
Well, the chief contends that they have to cook so much food that electric would not work for them. I don't know what
That
means.
is, I don't believe that is accurate with 21st century electric stoves.
I'm
In
not-
Athens Pizza right around the corner. Okay. We should probably
Okay.
strike the chief's request for a stove from the record. That sounds a little specific anyway.
Well, it sounds specific to me that he's asking for it. So I'll just come back at it like that.
Okay.
Yeah, well said.
Hey, it might have a dual use for their propane grills too, you see.
Right.
Don't get that. Am I
Well,
slow?
we have a standalone propane grill,
Well, no, that's part of it. It's the stove and the grill.
Well, the grill can be outdoors and have its own tank.
Yep.
Yep.
We
You
gotta
can
learn
come
how to
to-
do this. We can do this. We need to
You can
learn.
come to the next fire station meeting and listen to the final decision being made, Nancy. And
Speaking up and speaking against it.
if you wish. I mean, that's what the meetings are for, is for the public
Okay,
input.
just remind me
You
of
make
what it
good
is,
points,
I'll see
Nancy.
what I can do.
You make great points.
Yeah.
John.
So I had a question. Is there any been more discussion on the library, the current library? Is there any more future talk about what to do with that? Because maintenance will be required, and we should get out of the maintenance business on that building if we can. I just hope that stays on the front of people's minds. I hope there's still a buyer for it. I would hate to think that we get saddled with having to maintain that building too with the city.
My understanding is that Greenfield Savings is looking at purchasing it. They're just working on a price.
And I even told the mayor at the fire station ceremony they had, I talked to the mayor, I says, maybe it was in the middle of COVID, maybe you should petition the historical commission about having to save that entire, the back half of that library is no historical meaning to me.
The Greenfield Savings Bank is estimating they will spend at least $1 million, if not $2 million, on renovating the building. So it's going to be taken care of.
Mhm.
That would be great. Mhm.
Yeah. And it won't be a public problem. And we'll collect taxes on it.
Yes.
Our
I'm glad
assessor
to hear
here
that
says,
Greenfield Savings Bank is still considering it, because I'd heard early on that they were considering, and then I heard that they'd pulled back. So I'm glad to hear they haven't pulled out completely.
Caitlin, do you have any updated knowledge? My understanding is that an appraisal is being done, and I don't think it has come in yet on what,
As far as I know, they're still interested. That's what I know.
yeah. That's what we're hearing at meetings. So I think it's wonderful that somebody who will value the building and will save it is going to take it at whatever price they're willing to pay. So
Sometimes your
Carol,
butters are your best clients.
yep. So Carol, talk to us about what's happening at Fisk Avenue.
I had no idea what you were going to ask, Jean. I'm like, what am I working on? So Fisk Avenue is it's coming along. It's going to be fabulous. We're getting, I don't know if anybody's seen the work at the Main Street end, but there's space for a chess table, which is actually going to be kind of center there. 2 big benches, and then a bee sculpture is going to go at the northeast corner, the closest to Wild Roots, which is now open, and that couldn't be a better fit. I mean, it's just like complementing the site so well. I love the wings. We've already had photos under there. And then the garden is pretty much, it's done. And we're working on just some finishing touches, some signage. It should be all done. It's all dependent on their shipping times on everything. So it's coordinating that, but it should be all complete by June, and we'll have a nice big celebration outdoors in our lovely space.
Good job, Carol.
With some great local restaurants right there. It's an awesome place right now.
I know, Mesa Verde and Wild Roots, it's sandwiched right in there. It is, the Mecca is here.
Sorry to butt in, Nancy. Go ahead.
It looks really fabulous, and I have a question about the next phase of like moving the cars to being,
Yep.
Do you know
Yep.
anything about that?
I know a little bit, which, Marlo and I talked about it. So unfortunately, it's like with a lot of things, it's more involved than it looks. I would like to think, we'll just move, rip up the pavement, which, that's my goal in life anyway. Let's rip it up as much as we can, push it to this. There's a lot involved, in short. So an engineering study needs to be done, in part because there's a lot of grade changes, so to make sure that it works and there's drainage and no issues with that, and it fits with the contiguous areas and meets up with the bottom of the wall, all that. If you go look at the site, there is quite a shift or change in grade, and then there's also just pieces along with the sidewalk, because what's there now would all come out. Instead, there'd be one around the perimeter. So there's that's the next piece, is to get that done. And then Marlo was saying, just work-wise, they're overwhelmed straight out, and there's no money for it for this year. So probably 1 to 2 years. And MJ's been involved a little bit also, because she did have some money for sidewalks or, to kind of help out. So we're going to try to piece together getting it done, as soon as possible with DPW's like blessing that they do. So those guys are amazing. I can't sing their praises enough. Every time I go there, there's someone different I meet, and they're all just amazing and responsive. And I just wish everything was even half that easy. So, just
Put
so
that in the minutes.
Good people working. What?
I said, put that in the minutes.
I already wrote that down. Helpful and responsive. It's because they're dealing with things. You fix a thing, it's fixed.
Nancy, go ahead.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm curious whether, Carol, if the DPW is responsible for all of the daffodils in town.
Do you know who is? I just learned that, are you talking about in front of, like Thai Blue Ginger, that area?
There's more. I just saw one place, and then I was down there yesterday, and there's like more places.
Yeah.
It's like amazing.
Yeah. I actually don't know if I'm supposed to share this, but Tim Grader, who came to SGIC, I followed up with him about PACE, and we were talking, and he was like, that's my kind of secret mission, is that he's trying to plant bulbs all around downtown. And I think he said he planted like 500 last year or something, and a lot of them are coming up. So, wow. He's kind of got that. And I said, well, there's a lot of great efforts. So I'm hoping that everybody can kind of collaborate, because it's so wonderful to see. But it's just great that he's taken that on.
He's the new owner of Kona Company, and he's being extremely involved with our community here. So he's a great new asset to our area. He's from this area, but he was down in the Hampden County area. And when he purchased this, and amongst other buildings on Main Street, that's a great story to hear him being the one doing that. That's awesome.
I believe he's a Turner's Falls boy. Originally.
I think it might be more Montague Center, maybe.
I think he lived across the street from Danielle Letourneau.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, well, you would have a scoop there. There's a few graders in terms of Montague.
That's
He's a Fringa
great
County boy
story.
now. We got him. We got him
Yeah.
back.
I've thought about daffodils for years, but I never did anything. So, and then when I saw those, well, maybe I'll talk to, I was going to say, I bet I have a whole pile of daffodils in my yard that I could donate to the cause. So we'll see. Okay, thank you.
Yay. And go ahead, John.
So I had a couple notes from the previous meetings, and I know the City Hall, there was repairs that we had to put off. That would be the parapet walls. When they did the roof, unfortunately, they found the parapet walls. I thought there was something else with City Hall that we put on standby, and also the skate park. There were two things that were kind of on the back burner. And
Well,
that does.
The council has to vote on the skate park, and that's part of capital improvements. And so we'll see how that turns out. The mayor asked for $350,000 to use toward the skate park. So that's part of the agenda for the next council meeting. So we'll see where that goes. And I don't know what's happened with the parapets on City Hall. Do you know, Carol?
All I know is that I saw that central maintenance is on the next Ways and Means agenda. So I assume they'll be discussing all of the projects. But I thought there was something about pointing up brick. Does that sound familiar, John?
Yep.
Yeah, the parapets are masonry, and when they tied the roof in, they found out they were substandard. So they actually protected them pretty well with rubber roofing.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're going to degrade more, even though I guess they could if the lime and the masonry decays under it. But I don't think the weather is going to degrade it anymore the way they protected it, at least. So it's kind of mummy wrapped right now.
Yep. See it every time I go in City Hall. But anyway, I was just saying that because I'm sure at Ways and Means they might dig into it a little bit more.
I don't remember if money has been appropriated for that I don't think so, in capital improvements. I don't remember discussing it.
I remember last year it was on, but whether it made it or not, I don't think it could have been unspent money, to be honest with you.
I think it was on this year's too, but I
Mhm.
don't know what the current status is.
I think masonry on City Hall and some of the older buildings has been a topic since I've been on this committee, needing someone who does that kind of point work or whatever it's called because of erosion of.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
think it's the subject that people mention, and then they say, where can you find a mason? But I've heard that discussion for several years.
So my uncle, Charles J. Rucci, is the best mason in the Western Mass, and he's retired now. And he would probably do it on his own time, anything like that, inspection-wise.
I also found a retired mason who did the repair work at my house on a retaining wall, and he was fabulous, and also just does small jobs in retirement, lives in Greenfield.
So
Anyway.
Oh, John, sign him up.
Yep. Well, I tried to hook him up with MJ for Bank Row, but there's no direction in that project. So
I don't think we're allowed to do that even.
right.
Allowed to use any common sense. It has to
Right.
cost $1 million and you have to go out to bid and you have to blah, blah, blah. So it's unfortunate.
So we'll just
Sorry, this is being
we'll get
recorded.
Caitlin to check on the status of the pointing of the bricks. If you could do that for us, Caitlin, because you would have access to more information than the rest of us.
Specifically for the City Hall parapets?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we can talk about it at the next meeting. Susan?
On topics, unfinished topics, could I raise the question about Green River School?
That's the next thing that's the next thing that was on my list.
My understanding is the state school building project has announced new repair money for heating and ventilation systems. I think Greenfield's had a lot of work done. They actually had a project, I think, which covered some of the work done at Green River, but didn't pay for the controls and over time. Anyway, they have some investment. And also I was wondering, I keep hearing about the second and third wave of funding related to COVID and building repair, since we have to keep spreading out children and may need the building. Is it possible in the third wave of COVID funding that comes to the city? I think I heard it was going to be another $2 million. Anyway, I'm just wondering, what's the plan to get that building online, or if there's a plan?
Carol, do you know anything about it?
So George is heading up that project. And, I did see him on Friday, and he said that the bids come in like double what they were previously. So we didn't get into specifics. I don't know what the plan is, but we were there with VR to meet about the police department project, which was paid for with Green Communities money. So I want to say that we did talk about funding sources, because there are some other things through DOER also that we could look at. But honestly, I'm not involved with it at this point, and I'm sorry I didn't get back to you, Susan, on the MSBA. I do know that initially the Green River work was done through MSBA, and the reason we did not go forward with the heating system replacement is it did not pay for the distribution, which is the most costly part. So that's part of the reason it's taken so long, because it needs a whole new hot water distribution system. And I don't know if this current iteration will cover that, but I didn't see a link, and I honestly I didn't have time to dig in. So
I didn't look either. I was just wondering if it might be another potential funding source. I don't really have any information, maybe other people on the school committee do, about how the new money coming in related to COVID for education is going to be used. It comes to the city. So I'm ignorant. It's not that there isn't a plan. I just don't know what it is, if there is one. But I do see what other places are doing. They're putting up some, like, instead of just tents, they're making outdoor pavilions that can be used year round, and creating some other permanent outdoor spaces for use.
And it would also be nice to have air conditioning in the schools if we're going to be using them. If we can use some of this money to do that. Carol, is it possible to air condition the schools?
to air condition?
Yeah.
Well, and what I had pursued for Green River was to do another VRF system, which is what we're doing in all our other buildings, and that does provide air conditioning so that they could be used year round. And I think we're going to have cooling days required just during the normal school year as the weather continues to get warmer.
And can we do it with the money for the rest of the schools? Because even the high school's not air conditioned.
Parts of the high school are air conditioned. I'm going to guess probably not most of the classrooms, but I know there are spaces that are.
Library and office areas are air conditioned.
And the auditorium, and
yeah.
I believe the cafeteria too. I was freezing in there in the summer when we used to have council meetings there. But I'm sorry, adding air conditioning where there isn't currently is, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm not thinking all the way through, but that usually means window units, which I know a lot of the schools have already done. So I'm not really sure maybe I missed the beginning of
So
your
obviously
question.
it depends on the type of system that's currently in place, right?
Yeah. But ideally, if we're going to do air conditioning, we're going to do heat pumps so that we're providing heating and cooling with the same unit. We really don't want to see windows,
Electricity.
especially not in like the high school. That's a brand new building. And, you know, you can do just cooling only heat pumps, or then you call them mini splits, I guess. But I don't know cost wise how that plays out.
Well, that's part of the edict that I've been reading about from the COVID stuff, is to take care of the air in the schools. And so if we can use the money and do that, that would be fabulous, wouldn't it? Go ahead.
Well, the thing I will say is that I did work with the school department to get air purification units for all of the spaces, and boy, are they covered. And I'm like, why don't we just open all the windows and the doors at this point? But whatever. So, I mean, there's well over 300 units that have been purchased to put in all of the spaces that are being, I mean, in terms of like fresh air exchange to meet the COVID guidelines of, you know, basically every room is having all the air exchanged at least every 15 minutes, which is, it's huge, it's massive. And when you're dealing with gyms and larger spaces, it's kind of mind boggling. I can't wait to get the electric bill. So what I've been proposing from the beginning is that we have a consultant that comes in and does, we had a study of what the air quality was in each room, but no recommendations. And we really need that from, I would say, an expert that focuses on COVID safe spaces, and would want to rely on that much more than, basically it's been kind of piecemeal to this point. And yes, there's lots more money coming down, I think, to achieve that.
Right. Susan?
I actually never heard this. I don't recall ever hearing this discussed. And it's an interesting idea because with global warming and working in schools, once you get to the hot season, a common understanding is that nobody can actually work inside the schools when it's at those very hot temperatures. So people tend to use the last few weeks of school, it's just too hot for meaningful education to take place. And really, we're in a community with so many low-income students. The answer to some of this is having summer school, but you can't work in the buildings, they're too hot. So I mean, as it gets hotter, it's more impossible for people to teach. It's just too hot inside. So it's a very interesting idea to see what it would cost building by building, and whether or not there could be some plan, at least a couple of buildings, to get them so that they can be used successfully in the summer. I wouldn't worry, for example, about North Parish, and probably not the high school, but a building like, you know, Newton, or the 3 elementary schools that are used. What an interesting idea to get them so they're successful for learning all the way to the end of the year and through the summer. That would be quite important educationally, I would think.
Nancy?
Another good example of why electric, get rid of the fossil fuels. When the high school was being designed, I advocated for AC and was turned down and said, no, we can't. And I said, it's going to get hotter. You might use it in the summer. No one wanted to hear that. Just saying.
I know.
Finally, it's, you know, and we also advocated for a different heating system for the high school, which didn't happen. Everybody wanted gas. That's
We
what
did get a center aisle in the auditorium and foot space, so you could sit there and cross over someone. So you can't get everything. But you know, at the high school, maybe there could just be some rooms that were air conditioned, because in the summer you don't need everybody there, just so that it could be used in the summer. Anyway, it's something that might be worth thinking about. I've heard some thought that the money coming in would be best used for not temporary programs, that when the money leaves, so does the program, but for infrastructure that it wouldn't otherwise be affordable. There's some sense to at least some of the money being used for that. I like that idea, Jean's idea of looking into into that. I'm not speaking for the school committee, but educationally, it certainly makes sense in Greenfield.
Mhm. Well, I think that we should pursue that at school committee meetings to see if we can advocate for it when the money starts coming in. Carol?
And I would just stress very highly that it makes so much sense to actually put some thought and money behind, hiring the right people to look at a, holistic picture. I think it might be a wiser decision to just pick one school. Green River would be perfect because it still needs a heating system. I'm still down with doing the VRF there. I spent a ton of time on that and a ton of work. But talk to George. He's away, but I'll talk to him when he comes back. But to look at the whole picture and really make smart use of the funds to get the best bang for the buck and to further our goals of being off fossil fuels and trying to do things that are energy efficient, because right now it's basically it's always been a free for all. The teachers are hot, an air conditioner goes in the window, and then it sometimes stays, and then there were other places where we had brand new windows and immediately window units were going in there. So it's it makes a lot of sense to just spend the time to come up with solutions that actually work.
Great. I think that's a great idea and that's a great approach. Nancy?
So can this committee, I know that we do have a town-wide sort of policy or whatever of trying to reduce energy use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But could this committee, as the planning and construction, basically say, these are the goals, getting off the fossil fuel, that every building needs to be looked at holistically, and our goal is to do them all electric, and that we need to do the long-term look. I mean, would that be helpful to you, Carol, or does it make, give our committee a significant role to play?
How about if we make a motion to ask the mayor to put together to get someone to go in and look at all the schools to see what would make the heating and cooling systems better. I mean, that's how we can accomplish it, is to send it to the mayor. Nancy?
Yeah, but saying that is not the same thing as saying, this is our goal. Our goal is to get off, to have all these buildings electric, no fossil fuels. That is our goal. Once you have the goal, you can ask the mayor to hire someone who could help us assess that and, make a plan to get there. And obviously we have Carol, who's been out there beating her, this drum for a long time. But I know how hard you've worked on the Green River and how you just can't seem to get the electric, the VRS system to get that acceptable. And, you keep on running against finances or this or that or the other. But it's that thing, if you make the goal of where you want to go, I mean, in the long run, this is what we need to do. A good example is that look how much money we spent on the high school. And now, how many years is it? 5 years, 4 years, 5 years after? And we're already up against a wall. We don't, we don't have a system that's easily allows for air conditioning. We don't have all that stuff. And that's, I mean, frankly, we need to make it clear. This is where we're going as a society.
Can I chime in quick? A couple questions, Nancy. I loved almost everything you said, and I think some of the things that I just questioning, I just need an education on, but I trust you've done the research already. I guess moving forward, you bring up a good point about the high school 5 years ago, and now we're talking about needing to upgrade the system. I mean, yeah. So how about like the library well, we talked about the fire station maybe not using electric. And was the senior center, is that being used with electric, or does that have AC? I'm seeing yes. And my only question too about being in a position to say, I want to go completely electric. I love these solar panels I'm seeing on the roofs. My only thing that you probably can educate me on, I'm not sure if we have time, it's probably a longer conversation, is are we using fossil fuels to make electricity in these plants? Yes, some I'm guessing we are, but I would love to be a little more educated before I go on that path, but know that I'm following you because I think you've done more of the research and have put more time into it. But can you chime in and just give me a quick brief, are we using coal somewhere to make electricity to save gas? I'm just trying to figure out.
It's a good question. Carol?
Yeah, I'll just jump in on a few things there. Thank you, Joe. I mean, part of what I think my job is to educate people, because I hear the same things over and over. Oh, we wanted that, but it's too expensive. The truth is it isn't. And it's actually like no more expensive to do a net zero building than it is to do a standard compliant building. If you start in the beginning and that's your goal, and we're seeing that with the library. So far, we're achieving this, very, ambitious target, and it's not, we're actually, we'll find out in a few more weeks, but our last cost estimate came in under budget. So, that's always like great to see, because, it all comes down to like what you can actually make happen. But I will just say the new DPW office building, the John Zahn Center, the new library, hopefully the new fire station, all of those. Well, we'll take out the fire station for now, but those other buildings are all electric. They do have these highly efficient systems. They're highly insulated buildings. And what happens is if you have a highly insulated envelope, you reduce the amount of the heating and cooling systems that you need, and you have these high efficiency all electric systems. So all of our electricity as Greenfield Light and Power that we've been operating for 7 years has always been 100% green. So we already have an edict from the state that I think right now we're at something like 21% of all electricity is from renewable. And then Greenfield Light and Power does purchase the remainder. We have an additional 5% from Massachusetts-based renewable projects. And then the remainder is from other, actually it's newer wind projects. So we're not relying on fossil fuels for our electricity generation or supply. And the state of Massachusetts has very ambitious goals to continually increase the renewable component of the electricity supply so that we can get to zero fossil fuels by 2050. It might be even.
I think for electricity, it's 2035.
Yeah, 2035.
But if you're trying to count all the heating and cooling, then the 2050, yes.
Right.
Cars.
Yep.
And I'll have a PS about a PV system, which you didn't quite ask this question, and I'm probably 8 years out of date. So Carol, you can probably get to
a lot has happened in 8 years. I'll tell you that much.
I know it is. But 8 years ago, the amount of energy that went into making making the panel was paid back in 5 years, 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
And after that, it's like the gravy. So that's kind of like, it doesn't take more energy to make the thing than it produces. It uses a lot less. Do you know the payback time now at all, Carol? I don't. I'm out of date. So
it really depends, but I think they're usually saying somewhere between 5 and 7 years for the bigger systems. I know for the one on my house, I think I'm looking at like 3.5 to 4, and I'm almost there, which is awesome. And I have no electric bill, which is doubly awesome. So I will say that, Joe, another thing with Massachusetts is we have noble goals, but not always easily attainable. So that's something else we really need to work on to reach all these, lofty goals for the climate in the future. But solar is, for a while, it was in the stock market. And so that's why everybody and their brother was trying to do it. And we had developers out our eyeballs, and then everything changed. But now we have a supposedly more equitable system, but it's nearly impossible to make anything happen. But that's also being worked on. And that is a goal. And I know it hasn't been really talked about. But we did just build a 1.2 megawatt solar farm that's going to provide about 35% of the city's usage at a 30% discount, which, if you know the field at all, that's awesome. So
Where was that built?
on the Millbrook Wellfield,
Millbrook Wellfield. What's that?
Log Plain Road, up at the north end of town, abutting just to the west of I-91.
Water, our water.
Oh, that's,
water supply.
Allen's. You mean in Allen's roll-off land?
Again, it's town property.
Oh,
At
good.
the,
I don't know where it is, but that's great.
well, and the cool thing is you won't even see it from the road, from any road you take. You know, it's kind of hidden.
So Carol, is that system been hooked? Is it actually working? Is it supplied? Is it hooked up? No, it's what I thought.
It's all ready to go. We have to wait for Eversource to give the blessing, which should be within the next 2 weeks. I'm waiting on the final word, and there'll be a big party for that one too.
Oh, is it Log Plain Road? Is it Log Plain Road
You're
West?
right with directions. It is. It's like split. You come off of 5 and 10 there. You take a left and you go under the bridge. I forget what the name of that
Called
was.
Severance.
Severance, and then you take
Severance
a right.
Street to your right.
Yep, and then you
Yep.
go all the way to the end.
Does that
Oh,
project
good.
have a
Don't
name?
know about? That unheard of.
Yeah.
Does it have a name, like a code name, like
Well,
Project
Solar Farm-
Marblehead or something?
It's been called Solar Farm 2, and then we just call it the Millbrook Wellfield Solar Array, because I like long names.
Brookfield Solar Array?
Millbrook Wellfield, because that's where it is. Solar Array is what it is. It's all right
Good.
there in the title.
And you're saying it will be ready to go operating soon?
As soon as the electric company says yes, it's ready to go. It's just the electric company.
That's beautiful.
John, go ahead.
Yes, just wanted to bring up the schools in general. We've been talking about the energy, how, the dashboards are up and running. I wish I had time to check them, but our roofs and windows and doors and other maintenance items. I mean, nobody's screaming, so I'm guessing we're pretty well caught up right now. Is there any other needs that we don't want to get surprised with?
It depends who you talk to.
Yeah, I think Susan heard me.
Yeah. My understanding was different elements of terms. I don't see on the MASC website yet that our new superintendent opening is posted, but is that
You can pick me up, Susan.
in the past few years, there have been some capital projects approved that weren't implemented. And I think that's the status now of projects in the schools. I don't know what they all are. I think some might be doors and fencing, and I don't know what the repairs are that were approved but not implemented. That's sad to say, but we don't talk about capital. We haven't talked about capital on our agenda for a while. Maybe Jean knows.
It's the parking lot at Newton, their fences, elevators at Federal Street, the stair treads at the middle school. And I'm sure there are other things, but none of those, all of the money was approved for those things and none of them were done.
Wow.
So my understanding is that nothing more will be approved for the schools, whether it's proposed and needed or not, because the schools have not been effective implementing what was approved.
Carol?
I can't remember. I know I had a conversation recently. I don't remember who it was with, but I think, I guess it's just an idea, but a darn good one, if I say so. But I think it would be really helpful to get a very skilled, like, carpenter, contractor, I don't know, maybe someone else, but someone very knowledgeable about these types of things to go through and really determine, like, do we need to spend, $80,000 to redo this whole thing, or is it just that we have some loose tiles that we can replace? I know there's like kind of a balancing act between, I think it's a lot of times people don't know there's different stages, that it doesn't have to be like we have to replace everything or we do nothing. And I think I've always been a huge proponent of trying to make smart use of limited funds and really try to do something that, like, okay, well, you can do it this way and you're good for 10 years, or you can do it this way and spend 4 times more and you're good for 15. Maybe it makes sense to then do the 10-year so cost benefit analyses, I guess.
That's in the minutes of a prior meeting in February and March, where the discussion was a recommendation that there be some analysis and vetting of department projects before they start, before they're funded. It isn't just that a school or police department, fire department says, we need this, but to bring somebody in to clarify exactly what's the need and is the best way to do it the way the people initially think. And I think that's been in our record from last year. It's also in a recent discussion about how this committee should function as vetting these projects before they go for funding, just so all the input from all the different departments of the city and a consultant, if that's possible, understand the scope and need, clarify it first, which is, I think, what you're saying now.
Yeah, and I think also just more to kind of provide support, because a lot of times projects are coming from people that maybe don't have a lot of expertise in those areas, and like, so just having access to someone who could guide, like, oh, well, actually, this is another way to look at it. There's usually more than one way to solve a problem, I find, depending on what it is.
Nancy?
So since we've just seen that this has been in our notes several times, how do we take an idea from our notes and move it to action?
One is to influence the charter change. And I think there was some recommendation about that. And the second is an agreement with the mayor, isn't it, on the function of this committee? And she seemed to agree to this and to our outreach to departments, bringing things in initially, let that be a function of this committee.
So does that mean, are you saying that Caitlin could take it to this idea to the mayor and see what to do with it, or what's the process?
To me, the process is to get the mayor on board with our suggestions. And to me, that's kind of where Caitlin comes in, is to report to the mayor what we talked about.
Aren't you glad you came, Caitlin?
Obviously, it also involves money. So it's not the mayor saying, oh, that's a great idea. That has to be turned into okay, let's pay for that.
Could I suggest this also be on our agenda along with the mission of this group next month, as sort of the practical, how to practically implement that with and without additional funding? There must be a threshold for the size of it. You need an official engineering consultant. I don't know that, but if we're all in agreement on what this committee should be doing, and then a process to get more like regulatory guidelines, standard procedures, some agreement on that, the next step.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda. Nancy and then Carol.
Sounds like a great idea. And I noticed that we have 2 visitors that we haven't really acknowledged. I don't know who they are, except for I can read on my screen. Tim.
Well, one thing,
George, George.
One thing we've done on other groups is if visitors want to say something, they might put in their chat box, the name and address, or visitors might just want to listen in. So that's what we've done on other groups that I'm on when we've opened public comment. So
I guess I'd like to just
not
say
to put the pressure
that I see you're here.
Thank you. Carol,
You might see that I'm leaving if it's okay.
we just have.
If you guys are continuing the meeting, great.
We're toward the end of the meeting, so Carol had something to say and then we can adjourn.
I
So
can
it's
hang.
something to say and it fell out of the back of my head. But another thing I just wanted to add is I forgot when we were talking about, honestly, I was a little distracted, the earlier discussion about air conditioning, but there are central air conditioning units. So it's not a matter of window units only. So again, sometimes it takes me a second for things to sink in. But I know that my other thing that I was going to say had to do with submitting some type of, drafting this up. And I'm going to go on mute and maybe it'll come back to me.
John.
So I saw, George from maintenance, I know he doesn't have time to do this, but if anybody could be attached to his office to use the dashboards and to study up our maintenance and our upcoming projects and timing out when the roof's going to be needed, maybe his office would be. That's why I kind of recommended George tune into these meetings once in a while. And, his office is the closest one other than the building department, I guess.
Carol, go ahead.
I just want to say that I work very closely with George and we're in contact on all kinds of projects, and the dashboards were done with his input, with his, it's not something you have to read all the time, but it's a good thing to refer back to when you're looking for certain information. So, I think that's kind of our, one of a top priority is just to maintain that communication between departments so that we're making wise use of resources. And Fisk Avenue is a perfect example. That all came about because the wall was being replaced. And I learned about it at planning and construction. Christy was proposing her equipment that she wanted, didn't get the funding. So voila, everybody's getting a little piece of what they wanted. And, I think that's a great example of what we can aspire to, or, again, we're all crazy busy and everybody's got a million things going on. But, I think, what is it? We're stronger when we're working together. Or let's leave on a high note. There you go, Joe.
I do hear John, though, bring up, the fact that we are kind of responsible for all the buildings in town. And so I'm hearing that, John, like, you're saying all these new buildings are great, the new construction, and that's kind of a different category. Obviously, this group has a lot to do with the overall vision of the city from the building point of view. So you're bringing up dashboards and you're bringing up future, problems and maybe even past problems that we still have to address, like the terror pits or whatever those things are called. So I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think you're adding sort of what our central mission is to the conversation.
Susan?
We have some habits that have developed, even in the structure of the meetings, like having minutes, having an annual report, always starting with public comment. Could we consider adding to the agenda, like that this an update on one public building, so that over the course of 2 years, which is 24 meetings, maybe every city property just comes up for discussion, even if it's 5 minutes, to look at the dashboard and see what's going on with it. So there's a cycle of review that's sort of planned. And we know every 2 years we at least discuss everything. I don't know if we have more than 24 buildings. That's one comment I wanted to throw out. The other is I just wanted to mention I attended a seminar on homelessness and low-income housing, and a number of different communities were talking about what they were doing to address the problem. I think in our county, there's, I forget the number, like 1,800 short of units. And one town said they were looking at town-owned property, and they were designating some of that as potential sites for something. I have to go find it, but I don't know if, my question is whether this committee does anything related to looking at future location of affordable housing for homelessness or something. I'm just curious if that has any role with us. No? Okay.
No, there are other committees that do that. Carol?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. While I'm very interested, I think that MJ's really been focused on that more
Mhm.
through community
Okay.
development.
And the Housing Authority works on that.
Right. And FERCog, I think, has some
Right.
initiatives, but I know there's, everybody's hyper aware of the dire need for more housing. I'm really hopeful that that will allow some really innovative solutions to finally be allowed to happen in public arenas, because our hands are really tied by procurement laws. Prefab is the way to go, and there's a lot of other great solutions.
So let's bring this meeting to a close now so Joe can go. Joe?
I would make a motion then that we close public comment.
Okay. A second?
All in favor?
In favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, a motion
Next
to
scheduled meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Yep. Second
Second.
Tuesday, the 11th, next scheduled meeting, May 11th.
Right. And we're having Chief Hvac talk about the
Okay,
police
and-
department. So all in favor of
4
adjourning?
o'clock.
Yep.
Aye.
See you
I'll
later.
second that
Thank
too
you.
if you need a second on your minutes.
Thank you, Caitlin. Love having you here.